Hello, council members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Michelle Pappas, and I am a Spokane resident. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of the undersigned community groups, advocates, and individuals as we denounce Spokane Chief of Police Craig Meidl's preferential treatment of certain community members, including Chud Wendell and his associates in the Spokane Business and Commercial Property Owners Council. Our Chief of Police is using city resources to advance the agenda of a narrow group of powerful business owners, lending them more power than the average Spokaneite. Due to these injustices, we are currently calling for Chief Meidl's resignation in light of his conduct as Chief of Police in Spokane. We additionally call on Mayor Woodward to begin an open search for a new Chief of Police with meaningful and inclusive community involvement. We do not support a permanent internal promotion. We call on Mayor Woodward to follow the 2016 Police Leadership Advisory Committee's recommendations for hiring a new Spokane Chief of Police. We call on all concerned public officials to follow the recommendations of the OPO. We also call on Mayor Woodward to instruct the city attorney to negotiate a contract between the city and the Spokane Police Department that allows the police ombuds to write reports with the full freedom to explain findings and make recommendations based on their investigations and expertise. We call on the city administration to conduct a regularly scheduled audit of public record requests that track processing time of requests. And we call on the city of Spokane's City Council to use its subpoena power to fully investigate the degree to which Chief Meidl and other members of the Spokane Police Department use positions or public resources to advance the political agenda of Chud Wendell and the SBC POC, and to whatever degree members of local government were unduly influenced by Chud Wendell and their associates. I will not be able to get through the entire signs, but those signs are the Spokane Community Against Racism, Peace and Justice Action League of Spokane, the Smith-Barbieri Fund, Greater Spokane Progress, Veterans for Peace, Party for Socialism and Liberation. All
Michelle?
of us are none. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming down.
My name is Alice Kleinkoff. I'm going to continue reading this letter. On behalf of the undersigned community groups, advocates, and individuals, we denounce Spokane Chief of Police Craig Meidl's preferential treatment of certain community members, including Chud Wendell and his associates in the Business and Commercial Property Owners Council. Our Chief of Police is using city resources to advance the agenda of a narrow group of powerful business owners, lending them more power than the average Spokaneite. This behavior fits a consistent pattern wherein Spokane city officials continually play politics to benefit a few while refusing meaningful community engagement with the many. Examples include the stonewalling at the community roundtables on police reform, the years delayed and still non-existent hiring process for the director of the Office of Civil Rights, Equity, and Inclusion, and the disingenuous engagement with the larger Spokane community while continuing to approve funding for a police department sorely in need of accountability. In our community, certain elected and community leaders are under the scrutiny of our local police department, as seen in the ride-along vettings of potential city council candidates. Meanwhile, improperly leaked information from police investigations is being misused to attack city council members on national news networks and biased talk shows in order to further polarize our community and destroy public trust in city government. Officers have weaponized inaction and are using this soft strike to claim that any efforts to increase police accountability only lead to increased and unchecked crime. This toxic dynamic needs to be addressed with community oversight because public officials are afraid to enact meaningful public safety policies for fear of damaging this chaotic relationship further. This fear has perpetuated a vicious cycle in which City Council consistently supports the Spokane Police Department.
All right,
Thank
you.
you.
Your time tonight. Thanks for coming. Scott Ward, after Scott Ward, Jacob Newcomb, and Ron Smalls.
Hi, my name is Scott, and I'm a member of the Party of Socialism and Liberation. I'm calling on Spokane City Council to use its subpoena power to fully investigate the degree to which Chief Meidl and the Spokane Police Department use positions and public resources to advance the political and economic interests of the Spokane business and commercial property owners. Local investigative journalism has shown that the SPD is serving the interests of Spokane's wealthiest and most powerful people above the rest of the community. Clearly, the property and profit interests of Spokane's large landlords, real estate industry, and business owners are receiving special treatment and privileges from the SPD. This exposes the true purpose of law enforcement in our society: to serve and protect the economic and political interests of the capitalist ruling class. 130 years ago, the SPD served these interests by evicting the indigenous people of this land from this city. Today, they serve these interests by evicting people from their homes, sweeping the homeless, and being at the beck and call of Spokane's wealthiest individuals. City Council needs to use its subpoena power and also stop giving the SPD a blank check. We won't have a safe community until every person in our city has affordable and dignified housing, healthcare, education, as well as good paying jobs. Start putting resources toward those ends and not the SPD. Lastly, on the issue of police culture, culture reflects the system and class interests it serves. More money and training cannot fundamentally change this. The last 100 years has proven that. Last year was the deadliest year for police violence on record in the US. More funding is a failure. We spend more money every single year on police across this country, and the problem doesn't get any better. Stop falling for the same tricks.
Thanks. Jacob Newcomb. After Jacob, Ron Smalls, and then Joseph Sampson. Easy.
Thank you. My name is Jacob Newcomb, and I'm part of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And I'm here today because I read an article from the Inlander called Inside the Police Chief's Alliance with a Small Group of Powerful Spokane Property Owners, which explained a troubling exchange of hundreds of emails between the Spokane Police Chief and Chud Wendell, a prominent business owner in Spokane. In these emails, the police chief and Wendell exchanged favors with one another, including one where Wendell asked the police chief if they could start tracking whether a documented crime was committed by a transient. When looking at this particular exchange in isolation, one might be confused as to why Wendell would make this request. But then, looking at more of these emails, the purpose becomes very clear. In other exchanges between Wendell and the police chief, Wendell explains that he has aspirations to use this information to make propaganda against houseless people and policies seeking to assist houseless people. In many of these emails, Wendell was provided crime statistics on houseless people that the public wouldn't have access to unless they filed a public information request, and Wendell did not do that. The city's police department has provided information to business owners without making them go through the proper channels, which they have used to create propaganda against houseless people and pro-houseless people policies. While the city has claimed to be supportive of the houseless people and their struggle for homes and their dignity, where is the outrage from city council members on this? Why hasn't our police chief been punished for this crime against the people? If y'all don't take action against this administration-supported hate mongering against houseless people, you can't claim to be helping the houseless community. Spokane Police Chief Craig Meidl should resign. Thank you.
All right, Megro, welcome to City Council. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. I am calling to ask the council to please use your subpoena power to fully investigate how Spokane's administration, mayor, and police have criminalized homeless citizens' living conditions with a misallocation of funds to advance a handful of business owners' bottom line to the detriment of hundreds. Humans need access to restrooms, something those without homes have been deprived of and then subsequently criminalized for. From only providing 6 outside porta potties during a storm for over 500 people at the Unprepared Convention Center Emergency Shelter in 2021 to 2022 to the delay approving the city takeover of waste removal of Camp Hope, Spokane has historically not provided the necessities its citizens plead for and then blamed those affected. To read and released emails that Spokane City Administrator Johnny Perkins was actually removing porta potties at the request of a handful of people who just wanted to benefit their front door is heart-wrenching. There are more homeless people identified by the point-in-time count than any potential availability in all of Spokane shelters combined, including the recent addition of Trent Track Shelter. This continued lack of shelter masquerading as availability feels purposefully misleading when paired with Police Chief Craig Meidl's emails to Mayor Woodward, Johnny Perkins, and select Spokane citizens stating, quote, "Once day shelter is available, likely any amount, we will be authorized under this ordinance to enforce." Despite this email admitting lack of shelter in 2021, disallowing ticketing of sit and lie, Meidl continues in that same email that regardless, the police have, quote, cited over 80 individuals the previous week. There continues to be a lack of sufficient shelter in 2023. I have called Track Trent Shelter to check for availability, and multiple people there have responded to the phone that they have been instructed to claim that there are space available no matter what. Spokane administration members have removed access to human necessities at business owners' request. The police, also working at the business owner's behest, have exploited loopholes via pedestrian interference and trespassing to ticket when legally they could not. You sit and lie.
Megra, we're at the end of your 2 minutes.
Yes.
Thanks for participating tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm an attorney here in Spokane, Natasha Hill. I'm a business owner, community member, community organizer. And just being active in the community the last 3 years and trying and making attempts to build partnerships, particularly with law enforcement, it's been really frustrating. Every attempt that's made in this community is thwarted by the administration, particularly the mayor and the police department and the sheriff's department. We're not seeing the accountability that we need. So we continue to keep hearing that we need to, fund police, that we need to keep adding to their toys and gadgets, but ultimately, they're not making this community safer. I think the challenge here is to look at all the other things we could be doing that data actually shows are effective because we don't have the accountability. We're not seeing City Council holding the police department accountable. And now what we have on display is conflicts of interest, right? We have business owners, powerful business owners, and we saw that on display here today, right? With the complaints that you saw from everybody who waited so patiently to be heard. Because money is what's important. People in power are most important. We're dealing with the same pressure from rich parents in Spokane Public Schools and law enforcement teaming up there too. I'm sure some of you are very, very familiar about the FBI report that was made. Nothing came out of it. Interesting. But there was a lot of harassment on our administrators and our teachers because of it. If we make it appear less safe, then we can ask for more money. They decommissioned the only officer in Spokane Public Schools just to claim it was less safe. They're not trying to build partnerships, but the community's being asked to do that. Well, then we need it to be reciprocated. There has to be accountability on all sides. We cannot be asked to be in partnership with people that would oppress us. We heard stories just a moment ago, right, about the incident last week. I've heard police officers pulling AR-15s on high school students that they could identify by name, but they thought that was the appropriate response.
Your time's
We
up
have to do better.
for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Anwar Peace, a Spokane resident and a 22-year police accountability expert. The news about the police chief's emails confirms the major dysfunction and unethicalness this department has. In fact, one of the emails show that the police chief approves of his officers harassing and intimidating activists like me and other community leaders. Seeing those emails about activists then made sense to me on why I was falsely arrested for jaywalking 22 months ago, and why at 3 a.m., while out of town, the chief emailed 3 city council members about my arrest in an effort to discredit me. Weirdly, that arrest led to me having lunch with the chief and the police ombudsman, and at that lunch, I told the chief I was having a hard time reading him as a police leader because he makes so many duplicitous statements, like he supports Black Lives Matter and their messages of police reform, but the chief over the past 3 years has either blocked, stopped, or rolled back any efforts on true police reform. Another example is 2 times publicly this city council has asked the chief to release a statement to his officers directing them to stop telling the public while on calls that the city council is defunding the police, and yet the chief refused the city council's ask of him and instead offered the following testimony. That shouldn't have happened. Police officers on duty should remain apolitical, meaning that officers should take an unbiased position regarding political matters. But a short time after making those statements, the chief was testifying in front of the state legislature on rolling back the life-saving police reform laws from the previous years. Now, at this point, I've lost confidence in Police Chief Craig Meidl, and I support the community's ask of a new police leadership for SPD. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming down.
Hello, Council President Beggs and council members. Oh, I'm getting an echo there. I'm Debbie Novak, mother of David Novak, that was shot and killed by Spokane police officer Brandon Rankin. Or should I say Detective Brandon Rankin, as he was promoted soon after the shooting of David in the back, as he walked to his front door to his home. I'm sorry, I'm going to try and get it go. I don't know. I want to pass along some information that I think would be helpful when you're addressing this issue of public records being released and public records being released at the picking and choosing of the chief of police. It was 4 months and 26 days from the time that the investigation into David's death, supposed investigation, the press release. The press release that happened, we were not notified of ahead of time. We were not invited to it. We have found out by happenstance. When Meidl was asked why this happened, he said he didn't know how to get a hold of us. He did know how to get a hold of us. That was not true. I had had written communications back and forth with him. I had contacted him in person, and I had contacted him by phone and emails as well. I just want you to know that I agree with SCAR and the other many organizations that are asking for Meidl's resignation. It is very difficult for me to come up with the words to express to you how offended I am after reading these accounts of Meidl releasing information as he sees fit. He needs to follow the law and the procedures in place for a release of information. He needs to follow Initiative 940. I also want to add that a 14-year-old boy that is related to one of the officers on the scene
Debbie, your time's up for tonight.
released information.
You can come back.
I'm
next
sorry.
week. No, thank you for sharing, and take care.
Hello. First, I want to make a statement that I'm disappointed that we had to wait this long for public forum. I think that's inexcusable. Additionally, I want to point out that when we were standing in disapproval, someone in the lounge took a photo of us all, and that shows that this is not a safe space for any working or oppressed person who does not, or who wants to resist their own subjugation. Why focus on solving a problem, addressing the upstream issues, when instead you can profit on both the criminalization and maintenance of the problem? This is a classic tactic of the capitalist class, and the apparatus of police are there to enforce this tactic. We can see that with the track shelter. As soon as that went up, criminalization of people downtown increased, but also as long as the track shelter exists, the people donating to politicians' campaigns are going to continue making more money. So the track shelter really has no incentive to get people in housing. And so who suffers from the focus on these short-term economic benefits? The working and oppressed people, those who the police and state don't serve. The Spokane Business and Commercial Property Council and the Realtors Association and the landlords do not have our interests in mind. And we can see how they've thoroughly torn apart any semblance of democracy by the fact that this public forum was delayed so much so that you all can have a debate to make sure you get a 7-0 vote that led to a bunch of people not receiving infrastructure for a great amount of months later than the original policy would have. Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back.
You have all received this letter. I have placed it all in your desk, and it is all now public record. We have over 20, I believe it's 21 community groups have signed since 4 p.m. I'm not sure if more community groups have signed since then, but we represent thousands, if not 10,000s of Spokaneites, and that means thousands of voters. When it comes down to people supporting the police, chief of police, the police officers that are under the chief of police, according to a report last year, don't even support the chief of police. Most people find this behavior kind of disturbing and disgusting, and I hope you do too. It is a huge surprise that you can go through 3 emails and have your jaw on the floor just how these people are talking about other human beings. They say straight up, they have no want or will or even the idea to come in their head that there are other problems. They only want to focus on the problem at the front door. And what does that do? That pushes the problem into everyone else's door. That makes it so when you do sweeps all of the time, what does that happen when you leave somebody desperate without anything? What do you think that does to their neighbors? We have created this situation. We have used the same archaic tactics for so long. And yet we think that giving the same system more money is going to improve anything. But has it? We have a cultural issue, and it starts with the chief of police. We have a culture issue that is never addressed but is always talked about. When are we going to address it? When is city council going to act on things that it can do? And ask for the subpoena power that you have in investigating this stuff. And I ask everybody else listening, you need to read these emails. I'm happy to post them, link them, share them in any capacity. These emails are they are awful from any regard. If you are a human being, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
My name is Anton, and I just want to let you guys know that people that are opposed on the things that they say about the police chief, they're not talking about every one of them, the officers. And I know some of you guys are going to have that attitude that they don't like police department. No, we don't. And it's not that we don't like police department, it's the corrupt. And the chief may be a good person by him allowing himself to be manipulated by the Chuck Wendell and Shelton Jackson and be used, he should no longer be qualified to be the police chief. You know, because when he's the chief, he dictates to his officers, and I need you guys to use your backbone if you have one, and do your job. And don't go around and saying that, well, the SCAR movement, they hate police department. No, nobody hates police department. The corruption is what they don't like. Look at the homeless. They're making money. They're profiting the homeless, all the money that are spent. And I'll read to you some of the things that are said. For years, downtown commercial property owner has argued that progressive on Spokane City Council are abandoning the city. Such an excuse. No wonder you guys have no, I'm not going to say it. But anyway, letting criminals and drug dealers and transit running wild with the police had their hands tied. What a deal. Let the police, you know. It explains why they're not responding the way they respond. Who do you have in charge? Who's in charge of them?
Thanks for coming
The
down.
chief.
Your time's up.
Yeah, of course. I hope you use it.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Yeah. Will, Healing.
Thank you, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Salvador Racinos. I'm a Spokane County resident, and I'm reading this letter on behalf of Reverend Rick Matters. My name is Reverend Rick Matters, and I speak about the desperate need to reform police culture in Spokane. As the chair of the NAACP Criminal Justice Committee, I carry a special responsibility to call out the racism and divisiveness embedded in the Spokane Police Department. First, let me acknowledge that I believe Chief Meidl to be a good person, and further, I assume that all of our officers and staff joined the Spokane Police Department for the purpose of sacrificing for the common good, and yet they entered a broken system that inflicts tremendous trauma on themselves and on the people they pledged to serve. The harm of the system is revealed by the manner in which Chief Meidl used his influence unfairly to support a powerful few white and to politicize the department. The system he leads is working the way it was designed to work, and it used the chief for its cultural ends. It will continue to harm both police and those most disempowered in our society unless we thoroughly reform it. The OPO report and the recent Sean Vestal article show the misuse of power and exposes how trust has been tragically broken. Firing Chief Meidl might be necessary, but doing so will not fix the problem, for the next chief will be driven by the same patterns of harm that are deeply rooted within the history of the SPD and that are still present today, perpetuating themselves. I ask you to address the root cause of the disproportionate harm caused by the department, especially on BIPOC people, and to engage those who are most...
Salvador, I'm at the end of your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.